Wow, what an amazing teaser trailer. I can't wait to see that museum scene show up nowhere in the actual movie. Jesse Shade here for Awfully Good Movies on behalf of the JoBlo YouTube network. And while Time may have remembered Roland Emmerich's Godzilla to be a humongous disappointment, people don't know that it actually opened up way bigger at the box office on that Memorial Day weekend than the only other movie which came out in theaters, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's right, not only did Godzilla 98 nearly destroy that franchise, but it completely destroyed Terry Gilliam's chances of making another major studio movie ever again. And yet here we are 27 years later, and time has proven which of these two movies is the far better film about bloodthirsty lizards.
It won't be long now before they tear us to shreds.
So let's head back to 1998 with our Taco Bell cups in one hand and our Matthew Broderick toys in the other for this kaiju-sized episode of Awfully Good Movies. The past few months have been pretty great for fans of Japan's signature movie monster, Godzilla, with Toho Studios winning the franchise's first visual effects Oscar for the acclaimed hit Godzilla Minus One, while Legendary Pictures and their American Monsterverse follows up their streaming show on Apple TV Plus with another big screen team-up alongside King Kong, where the former enemies must join forces to save the world in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. And whether you're a fan or not of the past 10 years of America's attempt at its very own Godzilla franchise, you must admit that the Monsterverse has turned out better and lasted way longer than the very first attempt at an American Godzilla franchise, which led to one of the biggest cinematic bombs of the 90s. As we're finally discussing the kaiju crap-tastrophe that is Roland Emmerich's Godzilla. In 1992, TriStar Pictures announced that they were collaborating with Toho on a trilogy of American Godzilla movies, with the first film set to be written by Aladdin and Shrek writers Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, and directed by Speed's Jan de Bont. Until their bizarre story choices and escalating budget demands had TriStar instead turning to the newly hot duo of screenwriter/producer Dean Devlin and director/co-writer Roland Emmerich, fresh off a trio of hit movies that had peaked with the explosive success of Independence Day, and allowed to rewrite and make the movie however they wanted, just as long as that CGI Godzilla was rendered in time for the first teaser trailer's announced release date of Memorial Day 1998. With an $80 million advertising campaign that was as big as Godzilla himself, that gave us the infamous tagline, "No, not that one.
Size does matter.
Size does matter.
Size does matter.
Oh my.
Yet size did not matter after the film's huge opening weekend trickled down to an American box office haul far below expectations, thanks to horrific reviews from film critics and Godzilla fans alike. With the next two movies canceled by TriStar and Toho, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin splitting apart professionally for the next 18 years, and the producer who obtained the rights for TriStar calling it one of the worst cases of executive incompetence I've observed in my 20-year career. Well, since this flick did serve as my introduction to Godzilla as an 8-year-old, I shall discover how Godzilla 98 destroyed the hopes of American Godzilla fans, even worse than how Godzilla's destroyed Tokyo. And now that Godzilla has finally got himself this Academy Award, you JoBlo subscribers better hope that the big guy doesn't let it get to his head, much like it did to Will Smith when he finally won his Oscar. I know from that last movie with Kong how much those two like to slap each other around, and we do not need poor little mini Kong learning the wrong example from his father. Godzilla is attacking the city, but has thankfully left the liquor stores alone so we can play another round of the awfully good drinking game. Take a shot or drink whenever the movie tells us where we are, as the credits play over footage of Godzilla's radioactive origin story, back when he was just an egg among a nest of iguanas that's unfortunately found itself next to a military nuclear test site in the middle of a bomb test, taking place in the creature's signature country of French Polynesia. Really? We're already fucking up by taking all the Japanese out of one of Japan's most iconic cultural icons? I don't know, some fans on the Godzilla Reddit say this was to keep the film up to date with France's own nuclear bomb test in 1996, while others say it was to avoid the tragic topic of America's role in the bombs dropped on Japan that created the original Godzilla. Because any blockbuster movie bringing up that topic would surely do even worse at the box office than Godzilla 98 did. But then in present day, out in the South Pacific Ocean, we do see some actual Japanese actors aboard this cannery vessel, stereotypically eating ramen and watching sumo wrestling when our off-screen giant lizard attacks the boat with his mighty claws, so as to make Al Leong from Die Hard finally pay back for that candy bar he stole from the Nakatomi Plaza. The only survivor of the attack is an elderly chef who's found traumatized in a Tahiti hospital by a mysterious Frenchman who will later claim to be a disaster insurance agent, Philippe Roche, played by a post-Leon Jean Reno.
What did you see, old man?
Godzilla. Godzilla.
Ah, excellent. The old man's speech therapy with Dr. Schwarzenegger appears to be working swimmingly.
Godzilla.
Godzilla.
That's what I said. Godzilla.
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 Then we cut over to the post-disaster ruins of Chernobyl, where the worms in the ground are being examined by our unlikely hero of the film as he sings show tunes, played by actual Broadway singer Matthew Broderick, in the role of nuclear scientist Dr. Nico, or Nick, Totopoulos, named after the guy who designed Godzilla for this movie and turned into one of this film's many weak attempts at humor.
Dr. Nico Totopoulos. It's Totopoulos.
How did Mrs. Totopoulos handle that?
It's Totopoulos.
You dumbasses, his last name is supposed to be pronounced Bueller. He's dropped in on by a helicopter of State Department personnel who need this so-called worm guy to come with them to Panama and help identify the destructive trail left behind by this unseen creature, under the command of the ornery Colonel Hicks, played by the great character actor Kevin Dunn.
Here's your sample. What sample? You're standing in it. I don't see it.
As well as the horny Dr. Elsie Chapman, played by News Radio's Vicki Lewis, who somehow was able to access a videotape of that old Japanese guy saying the creature's name, despite no cameramen being around in that scene.
Instant cassettes. They're out in stores before the movie is finished.
Soon though, Dr. Nick is able to deduce from the radioactivity in the creature's trail that it's no kind of dinosaur that they're dealing with.
A hybrid caused by the fallout on these islands. The first of its kind.
And whatever it is heading straight for none other than the Big Apple of Scranton, Pennsylvania. New York City. Otherwise known as the city that never sleeps. Where who should be working as a plucky, aspiring news reporter but Nick's old romantic flame of his college days, Audrey Timmons, played by Maria Patillo, who has to scrounge her way to the top by working under not just this movie's second actor from Die Hard, but the first of the 3 Simpsons voice actors in Godzilla's cast, Harry Shearer, evoking the spirit of Kent Brockman while playing the egocentric news anchor Charles Kamen, who treats poor Audrey to sexist insults straight from the Ron Burgundy playbook.
This is the moment when the big boys go to work, okay, honey?
As well as sexual advances from the Matt Lauer playbook.
Why don't we talk about it over dinner tonight? Your place.
Mr. Kamen?
I hope you're prepared for an unforgettable luncheon. Steamed hams.
Audrey notices her old boyfriend popping up on the news while in the middle of lunch with her 2 best friends at work, Lucy Pilati, played by Arabella Field, and her cameraman husband Victor, aka Animal, played by our second Simpsons voice actor of the cast, Hank Azaria.
You're a nice person, you know? Nice guys finish last.
Whose cartoonish New York accent amusingly slips into his Mo Sislak voice for just a second.
Jeez, and you got the stink lines and everything?
What's next? Are we gonna find out that Godzilla's roar is being dubbed here by Julie Kavner? By which I mean the 73-year-old Julie Kavner you hear barely croaking her lines out on current day Simpsons episodes? Speaking of Godzilla, Roland Emmerich mandated all the advertising to obscure Godzilla's appearance until the film's release, and he remains obscured in this big intro scene to New York that also served as the film's second teaser trailer. An old man goes fishing out on the docks to finally catch himself a big one from the Hudson River.
I got Do I have a bite?
only to have his reel pulled into the water by the 200-foot giant lizard that it's caught on, who emerges from the river while the old fisherman runs for his life like he's an even older Tom Cruise. Still one of my favorite teaser trailers from my childhood. Unfortunately, that epic intro gives way to Roland Emmerich's love for wacky comic set pieces at the expense of these fleeing victims, such as Godzilla nearly stepping on Hank Azaria out in the street, since seeing a giant lizard apparently impairs your ability to go left or right, or our third Simpsons cast member Nancy Cartwright making a cameo as Harry Shearer's secretary.
Sir, I think your story just walked by the window.
Who clearly needs to tell her boss about getting his peripheral vision fixed down at the eye doctor. But worst of all, and a joke that Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich specifically made at the expense of beloved TV film critics Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert for their negative reviews of their 3 previous movies, Godzilla interrupts a campaign rally for the city's corrupt leader, Mayor Ebert, played in his most infamous role by late great character actor Michael Lerner.
Do you realize what this evacuation is going to cost the people of this city?
Who is followed around by a sniveling, bald-headed deputy mayor named Gene, happens to have a thumbs up serving as his signature trademark, and has plenty of jokes made at the expense of Roger Ebert's real-life weight problem.
Didn't we agree that we weren't going to have any sweets until after the election?
Have some candy.
No, I don't want any candy. Leave me alone.
It's bad enough that Devlin and Emmerich are fat-shaming a Pulitzer Prize-winning laureate of film criticism, but they also have to drag his partner into this mess too, who incidentally got diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor the same month that he had to watch this shitty movie and filed his review from his hospital bed over the phone on Siskel and Ebert that week, then died from brain cancer less than a year later, with the grief-stricken Ebert following suit from thyroid cancer in 2013 after it already took his ability to eat and speak. In fact, their review sums up the biggest problem with these characters far better than I can.
I thought that seemed petty.
Yeah, I did too. At least Godzilla didn't step on us.
Well, but Roger, I fully expected that to happen. And I think the audience is waiting for that to happen.
Yes, exactly. If you're gonna drag audiences into your petty feud with 2 film critics whose poor opinions didn't hurt your filmography success anyway, then have Godzilla stomp them to death in a far more hilarious fashion than the actual deaths of Siskel and Ebert, whom I hope are still resting in peace, giving Dean and Roland the upward finger that this movie actually deserves. So with Mayor Richard Roper ordering all 3 million people in Manhattan out of the city towards safe harbor in New Jersey, Dr. Nick can help the military lure out Godzilla from the hole he somehow burrowed underneath the city by throwing out some of the fish that this creature seems to enjoy noshing on.
Come on, you bastard, it's supper time.
Perhaps you could even say, a lot of fish?
That's a lot of fish.
Damn it, did no one tell Broderick that they rejected the Long John Silver's tie-in favor of the Taco Bell campaign? They should be using a huge pile of cheesy gorditas and a tiny talking chihuahua with which to lure this beast.
Come on, you bastard, it's taco time.
And 45 minutes in, we finally get our best look at the redesigned CGI Godzilla, better known nowadays as just plain Zilla, looking like a dinosaur with arthritis that's no better than any of those rubber Godzilla suits, and still being obscured in the dark by all this goddamn rain that's been pouring in the city for this entire movie. Dean Devlin says that this rain was meant as an homage to the very first Godzilla movie, which only had one scene taking place in the rain, but that the effects were indeed so rushed that Sony even had to go back and fix some of them for the 2009 Blu-ray. And yet look at what Godzilla Minus One could do with $12 million of effects compared to what Godzilla 98 couldn't do with $150 million. But kudos to them still using some practical sets for Godzilla and these army helicopters to duke it out in. So to give Roland Emmerich an excuse to blow up some more famous buildings, just like he did with the White House.
That's the goddamn Chrysler building we're talking about here.
Way to go there, T-Bone. This is what happens when our army enlists people who name themselves after pieces of meat.
Fire! I think we got him.
Loser!
The entire premise of this movie is built around the idea that a 200-foot irradiated lizard would be easily able to scurry himself away from all the combined forces of our military, as Zilla hides out for a big chunk of the movie sporting his name. Gee, wonder where I've heard that complaint before. To give way to the rekindled love story between Matthew Broderick and this lady who looks like his last girlfriend from The Cable Guy, that all you young kaiju fans came here to see, right? But in the midst of catching back up with Audrey, Nick makes a shocking discovery on this pregnancy test that somehow works just as well for mutant iguanas as it does humans.
He's pregnant.
Ooh, feel those kicks, he's gonna be a soccer player.
Doesn't he need a mate?
Not if he reproduces asexually.
But while Nick is off to declare Godzilla as a proud member of the asexual community, Audrey finds and pops on that top-secret videotape of the old man identifying the creature, and sees a chance to further her news career by taking the tape for herself and also taking the audience's sympathy away with her. This Stubby is perfectly okay with ruining her ex-boyfriend's career at the hands of all these angry military personnel, such as Colonel Guy who's always in Tom Hanks movies, and Admiral George Washington Duke from Rocky V, so that she can sell this story off to her asshole boss, who of course takes all the credit for this story for himself.
Godzilla.
It's Gojira, you moron!
It's Kern, stupid! You're officially off this project as of now.
So congratulations to the former star of War Games, who ironically just got himself played. While Matthew Broderick is a fine actor in the right circumstances, there's nothing about his wimpy character, which is a force of personality, that you need for such a big-name blockbuster. Thankfully, this is where Jean Reno picks up the slack to reveal to Dr. Tatiana Maslany Octopus, oh god damn it, now I'm doing it too, that he and his fellow insurance agents who have been secretly surveilling Mayor Ebert this whole time are actually agents from the French Secret Service, for whom Philippe is trying to cover up France's role in the nuclear test that created Godzilla.
This is America. You can't buy anything.
Basically, he serves the same purpose that Ken Watanabe did in his two Godzilla movies. The esteemed foreign badass actor who's way more charismatic than our overstuffed cast of bland American characters. Especially when Renault is able to pass himself and his men off at a military checkpoint with Nick thanks to a stick of juicy fruit and a killer Elvis impression.
You got a problem talking? Well, no, sir, I'm fine.
Oh my god, you're Austin Butler, aren't you? Oh, sorry, sir, I simply loved your work in Dune Part 2.
Oh, thank you very much.
You folks go right on ahead. Good luck getting rid of that Elvis accent of yours, sir.
What's the king?
The underwhelming CGI beast rears his ugly head back onto the surface once more and swims down into the New York River to face off against a submarine that surprisingly was not sold as one of this movie's many toy sets.
Cannons are locked in! Rockets are blasting airborne! Oh no!
The missiles finally bring down Godzilla, and we've seemingly knocked the beast out finally to his watery grave below. Shit, this movie still has 50 minutes left to go, where all our heroes head down to the wrecked ruins of Madison Square Garden.
He trashed the garden. Man, now I'm pissed.
Now serving as home to all 200 plus eggs that Godzilla asexually laid behind, to give James Cameron several good excuses to file a couple of infringement lawsuits. Oh, but Aliens isn't the only sci-fi classic that Devlin and Emmerich want to invoke here, which isn't actually a Godzilla movie.
I'm the baby, gotta love me!
Yes, these eggs have hatched to reveal an armada of Godzilla babies. Thankfully, none of which look as stupid as Godzilla's very first son, but who most certainly resemble the killer raptors chasing our heroes around in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. In fact, Spielberg, a lifelong Godzilla fan himself, who had made this cringy Godzilla joke in the Jurassic Park sequel, had personally advised Roland Emmerich not to take this movie. And Emmerich, who was not a Godzilla fan himself, only took the job because of the enormous paycheck from TriStar. This is probably why this film is inexcusably stuffed to 141 minutes. All this goofy chasing between the heroes and the CGI Dinozillas being peppered with blatant product placement for products that don't even exist anymore. These damn things can't even run across some gumballs spilled onto the floor without bumbling over themselves like they're the sticky bandits. That is literally as silly as the robot chicken parody of that very same scene. But eventually, our heroes find a broadcast booth that Audrey uses to report live on the news about this building full of Zilla babies, who will keep reproducing if they reach the outside world.
They have to destroy this building immediately.
I want you to blow up Madison Square Garden.
Well, since Beyonce or Billy Joel aren't available to help blow up Madison Square Garden, Colonel Hicks calls in the Air Force to firebomb the shit out of these baby Godzillas, while our heroes flee from the ensuing explosion.
Somehow I never thought your life was this exciting.
You'd be surprised.
Looks like we finally reached the end of this chapter. Oh, but of course, Godzilla is still alive and kicking, and ready to avenge the brutal deaths of his Nick Cannon-sized amount of children, which leads to another overlong chase scene in a taxicab, while being helped to safety by the valiant Sergeant O'Neill, the character so bland I've only mentioned him towards the end of this review. They lead Godzilla out onto a trap within the cables of the Brooklyn Bridge, more like suspension bridge of disbelief, while the creature is finally defeated by an onslaught of military weapons, which is something that never defeated the Godzilla of the Toho movies because he was created as a result of military weaponry.
This is bullshit. Can't let me eat my fish in peace. You can't let me lay my baby eggs. And I was only in 11 minutes of this entire movie. Jason Voorhees was right. Taking over this place is overrated.
So the people of Manhattan jubilantly cheer Godzilla's demise, while Gene angrily thumbs down his resignation from the Ebert campaign to be replaced by the far worse Deputy Mayor Ben Lyons. Audrey makes romantic amends with Nick and tends her resignation to Charles Keeman, and Nick is called from afar by Philippe, who promises to send Animal's tape of Godzilla footage back to him after he deletes a couple things. And just to keep that door open for those two planned sequels, we cut back to Madison Square's fiery ruins, where one lone Godzilla egg begins hatching open. But of course, we did not get those two sequels, though we did have TriStar handling American distribution for Toho's far better Godzilla 2000, as well as Toho bringing the CGI lizard back as the quickly defeated Zilla in Godzilla Final Wars, as a way of expressing the studio's displeasure at the '98 movie for taking the God out of Godzilla. And of course, Godzilla, the series, an animated Saturday morning cartoon debuting on Fox Kids only 4 months after its disappointment at the box office, but surprisingly running for 2 whole seasons of 40 episodes, which are worth checking out streaming on YouTube, where 90210's Ian Ziering took over as the voice of the newly hunky Dr. Nick Tatopoulos, leading a research team to chase after the newborn Godzilla, who's now grown up into a full-grown kaiju, who does all the cool fighting against other monsters in the daylight without it raining all the time that we did not get to see in the movie. That alone makes the show a step up, along with a surprisingly big cast of guest stars, and the returning voices of both Kevin Dunn as Colonel Hicks,
Go back to scooping up worms. It'll be a lot safer for everyone.
and Michael Lerner as Mayor Ebert,
It's New Jersey's problem now.
marking the second time that Roger Ebert was portrayed in a 90s cartoon.
Cue ball in a side pocket.
And I certainly must discuss the epic music video for the film's closing credits theme, Come With Me, performed by rap music superstar Puff Daddy, later known as P. Diddy, and currently known on social media as The Diddler, for his currently still unfolding trail of sexual assault allegations and raids on his mansions from Homeland Security.
Jesus.
But back in '98, Puffy was still such a music megastar that he was not only allowed to sample Led Zeppelin's classic rock tune Kashmir, but also enlist Jimmy Page himself to play on the song, alongside a full orchestra and further guitar from the song's producer, Tom Morello. All of this in service of a song that has alleged sex trafficker P. Diddy asking the listener to come with him.
Can't let you go. I wanna fight you. I fight you.
For the love of God, please do not come with P. Diddy. I must admit that the fond nostalgia of seeing this flick in my childhood does make me want to go easier on it. but Godzilla 98 exemplifies all the blockbuster bloat we see nowadays, of undercooked CGI effects peppered with sitcom characters doling out lame quips, as well as the corny disaster movie formula that Roland Emmerich would keep beating into the ground well into today, which feels so removed from what Godzilla stands for, namely his symbolic warning to mankind about the usage of nuclear weapons, or his tendency to whoop the asses of other cool-looking monsters. As long as Legendary Pictures keeps sticking to that formula for their far more entertaining monsterverse, which happens to have original Godzilla 98 writer Terry Rossio credited as a screenwriter on both Godzilla vs. Kong movies, then that franchise will still be an improvement over this overlong and undercooked blockbuster bomb that's not without some awfully good merits. Plus, Godzilla 98 still remains an improvement over Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin's big reunion to come with Independence Day Resurgence, a film which had 0 Simpsons voice actors or Taco Bell tie-ins to help redeem it.
Oh, this is not good.
On the enjoyment continuum scale from Boulder Bruce, Godzilla 1998 may not be the worst thing that America did to Japanese culture. Looking at you, Dragon Ball Evolution, and slaps King Kong across the face with a 5 out of 10. Now I am become Roland Emmerich, the destroyer of franchises. I'm Jesse Shade for JoBlo.com, and thanks again for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the JoBlo Originals channel. Tell all your friends who like this sort of content, and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all our latest videos. We are an independent company that appreciates all of your support, and hope that you've enjoyed watching this video with a friend, much like Godzilla and Kong do, over a leftover Godzilla popcorn bucket from 1998, shaped like the head of Matthew Broderick.
That's a lot of fish.
I was just about to get it.
The network is on an intranet.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.